Welcome to this video about doing your tax return. It's almost March and that means you have to do your tax return form for last year. We will walk you through all the steps and tell you exactly when and how you need to do your taxes. Let's get started. So when do you need to do your taxes in the Netherlands? Well, if you stayed more than half a year in the Netherlands over the past year, you have to do your taxes here. There's a 183-day ruling which says if you stayed for the longest period over the last year in the Netherlands, you have to do your taxes in that country. And also you might have received a service tax letter. This letter will ask you to do your taxes here in the Netherlands. If you haven't received the letter, it doesn't mean you don't have to do your taxes here, it's just not mandatory to do that. Filling out the tax form might be worthwhile because you get some money back. But there is also a possibility that you have to pay a little bit extra. If you got a tax service letter, you have to do your taxes, so there's no choice in it. But if you didn't, you can also opt to do your taxes and see if you get some money back from the government. So what do you need in order to fill out your tax return form? First off, you need a DigiID to access the government website. Then you will need all your annual statements of the companies you've worked for in the last year. Lastly, you need some bank overview to see how much money you've had on your bank accounts over the past year as well. If you have all these documents, we can get started on doing your tax return.
So to start your tax return, we go to Belastingdienst.nl. On the home screen, you can press Login on the top right corner. Once you've done that, you can press Mijn Belastingdienst at the drop-down menu. From there, you will be able to log in Mijn Belastingdienst. This is where your DigiID will come in. Press Inloggen with DigiID. Once you've walked through the steps of logging in with DigiID, you will come to this screen where you can press Inkomstenbelasting. This will send you to a screen where you can see all the years you can do tax returns for. In this case, we will choose 2023, but you can also choose any other years you still have to do tax returns for. Now we are at the first page of doing your tax return. This is a short introduction. You can just press Volgende. First off, we have to enter some personal information. Maybe some of it is entered for you already. You start with your name, then your date of birth, your BSN number, and your telephone number. The last one is a number for your consultant if you have one, but most of you probably don't, so leave that empty and press Accord. Now we come to the first question. It asks if you were married at the top in the last year or if you had a roommate in the last year. Answer what is applicable to you, yes or no. Now they ask you about your partners. The first question is if you were married in the mentioned year, and the second question asks if you had a housemate in the mentioned year. So we enter yes for the second question here because it might be true for a lot of you, and then you have to mention the name of your housemate. Then they ask if you were registered with them on the same address for an entire year. If you answer no here, then they ask you if you were registered with them on the same address for part of a year. If the answer to this question is yes, you have to enter from which date to which date you were registered with this housemate in that said year. Then they ask if your housemate passed away in the mentioned year, or if you had a notarial cohabitation contract with your housemate. And the last question on the page is if you had a child together with your housemate. Then going to the right side, they ask if one of you acknowledged a child of someone else's. And then the question is, were you and your housemate together in a pension scheme? If you and your housemate were owners of the place that you were staying. If one of you had an underage child registered on the address that you were living. And then if your housemate was your fiscal partner. The last question on the page is if you had any other housemates. Enter yes if that's true, enter no if it's not true, and then you can press Accord. Then you will come to this screen, which will show you what information has already been noted down by the Belastingdienst. You can look at it or press Volgende. Then you will get a question about if you had any children born after the year mentioned at the top. So, did you have any children, yes or no? Here they ask if you had a business in the last year. You can either answer yes or no. Now they ask you about your income. The top box includes income from working in the Netherlands or outside of the Netherlands, like working for a recruiter student, so that one is probably true for you. Then we have pensions and other payouts. Check for yourself if this applies for you. Then income from other jobs, like bringing around papers or folders, or maybe you were an artist and earned money that way. Then we have income from making available your own possession, like making available buildings for other people, and then partner alimony and getting back amounts of money that you have deducted from previous tax returns. So see for yourself which ones apply for you and check all the boxes that fit. Then you can press accord. On this page you will find all the money that you've earned over the last year with all your employers. You can check with the annual statement if the amounts of money that are entered are correct for you. You can also add any employers that are not listed here and that you have worked for in the last year. At the end, you can enter if you had a Wayong payment, which is a payment for people who are handicapped and not able to work. So enter all the information and check if everything that's entered is correct, and you can press accord. Now they ask you if you've owned any building in the last year. So if you owned a home or an other building or any terrain in the Netherlands. Enter what applies for you and press accord. The next screen asks you about any other possessions that you had. The first one is a bank or savings account. Then if you had any substantial interest in a company, which means 5% or more of any stocks of that company. Then if you had any other stocks. Then if you had any capital insurance. Then if you had a construction depot for any buildings that you own. If you had cash money in your home, only if you had more than 543 euros. If you had any money that you lent out and were expecting back still. Then if you had any rights to a periodic payment from any company or other organization. And then if you had any possessions like Bitcoin or other buildings that you owned. So check for yourself which ones apply for you and maybe use Google Translate to see more of the details. And then you can also press accord. Now they will ask you about more details of your bank accounts. They will show you what bank accounts they know of. And it shows you how much you had on that bank account on the 1st of January of the year mentioned. So check if this is correct with your bank account statements and also if they have all the bank accounts that you own listed here. You can add another one if you press yes at the bottom question. Otherwise, if everything is okay, you can press accord. On the next screen, they ask you if you had any mortgages for any houses, for instance, or any other debts with your employer or family. Enter what applies for you. Here they ask you about money you spent in one of the following categories. At the top you have annuity, then any other expenses for disability insurance, for instance, then any healthcare costs which you did not get insured, any gifts to an organization or maybe the church, then money you spent for a study but didn't fall under the study financing program. So most of you fall under the study financing program because you study at an university or University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands. If it is a private study facility, most of the time those fall under this category. Then any expenses you made for alimony that you paid to an ex-partner. And then if someone who was handicapped stayed with you throughout the year when they were 21 years or older. And then any expenses you did before the previous years which you weren't able to declare up to now. Then they have some additional questions. The first one asks if you had any professional assessments. Then if you had any losses between the years mentioned. Then if you weren't fully insured for health insurance, for instance, then if you had any pension that you bought off in a mentioned year, if you had any right to pension that was paid from outside the Netherlands, if you had a trust or a fund, and the last one, if you did any deductions to avoid double taxes in the year mentioned. Check the boxes that apply to you and then you can press Accord. Now we've come to this screen, which shows if you will get any money back or if you have to pay any money. So the amount on the right will either be what you get back or what you have to pay, depending on what it says on the left. So in this example, you will get back 396 euros. You can press Accord. On this screen, they will show you how they calculated how much you have to pay or how much you will get back. Now we are done with filling out the form and you can send it. Go to Save and Send. Accept that you have filled out this form truthfully and then you can send your tax return.
This concludes our video on doing your tax return. Hopefully everything was clear, but if you have any questions you can always leave a comment in the comment section below. We've listed all the important websites in the description and give us a follow on social media. Also subscribe to this YouTube channel to see any more interesting videos for students in the Netherlands. Hopefully we'll see you next time and have a great day. Bye bye!